Hello, my literary luminaries, and welcome back. Like I said on Tuesday, not doing a Top 5 Thursday today because the topic was like disappointing eye candy, like books that looked really pretty but didn't live up to your expectations. And honestly, I spent a while looking at my bookshelf and couldn't come up with anything. So instead, you are getting a book tag, which you could probably tell from the title of the video, but whatever. This is the book Courtship tag. I will put both the original video to the original tag down in the description, plus a link to Kat at Cattytastic's video, who is the one that tagged me. I don't think she tagged me specifically, but she tagged people that wanted to do it, so yay! So, this one, I think I have copies of some sort floating around for all these books, so I'm going to try and show you what they all are. But let's get started. Question number 1 is Initial Attraction, a book that you bought because of the cover. And I actually talked about this on my blog the other day because the one that I chose for this is Seduced by Moonlight by Laurel K. Hamilton. I literally picked this up because I looked at the cover and went, ooh, that looks cool. I'm gonna read this one. And it turns out, of course, that this is book 3 in a series, which is my ongoing curse, which I probably could have figured out from, author of this other book with a similar title, but I'm not terribly smart, and was even less so when I bought this book. But very pretty, moons, green. I bought it when I was a teenager. This was pretty much what spoke to me, moons. So, moons and seduction, what more could you want in your life? And I still love the Mary Gentry series, so it was a good choice. Question number 2, First Impressions, a book that you got because of the summary. All of you probably could have guessed at least one book by M.C.A. Hogarth is going to end up on here, and that is A Rosary of Stones and Thorns. This isn't actually one that I talk about much, though I don't really know why. This is the first book of Micah's that I ever read. I came across it on the Kickstarter that she was doing for the ebook version, I think. I don't know. She was doing a Kickstarter for this. I looked at it and said, Fallen Angels? Angels? Drama? What? I write books about angels. I need to back this. So literally, I looked at the summary, went, ooh, angels, and got it. And I have never looked back once. But this is a really, really excellent book. There is a little bit, obviously, of sort of religious overtones, but it never beats you about the head and shoulders. And I think everyone that likes anything even remotely to do with angels should absolutely pick this up. But I say that about all of Micah's books now, don't I? It's always right. Number 3, Sweet Talk, a book with great writing. And this is going to be really small because my Kindle is being stupid and doesn't want to show the cover of this one. But that one is Vamped by David Sosnowski, maybe? Bring it forward. It's a really nice cover and I wish I could show it to you better. But what really got me about Vamped was I spent most of it being like, I want my main character to talk to this main character. They need to be friends. They would get along so well. It's an interesting book because it walks a whole bunch of different, borderlines. It's, vampires are the norm, like they are the majority. Humans are hunted. It's this, vampire dude who's been around since like World War II trying to raise this small human mortal child. It's got a lot of really cool stuff going on, and he does an amazing job writing the character's voice. He never breaks. It's glorious. I absolutely loved it. It was a Christmas present. If the review for Vamped isn't out on my blog yet, it will be soon. I think, yeah, it's going to be up on February 3rd. I have a calendar to keep track of these things because I'll forget them otherwise. But my proper review for it's going up on the blog February 3rd. It's going to be awesome. I loved it. It's brilliant. So if you like vampire fiction at all, I absolutely recommend checking it out. It's wonderful. That's all I can really say about it. It's absolutely phenomenal. Number 4, First Date, a first book of a series which made you want to pick up the rest of the series. This one I knew the answer to immediately as soon as I read it. That is Unseen by Stephanie Erickson. I've actually had the pleasure of talking to the author a couple times on Twitter recently because I don't remember how I picked up Unseen. I clearly signed up for something where they sent me the first and second books of the series for free to make you want to get the third one. And I don't remember how or when or where I did that, but I'm really glad I did. Stephanie Erickson's got a really cool idea. I mean, there's a few flaws, but pretty much every book I like has a couple flaws. It falls into some fairly typical YA traps, but it doesn't make it bad. I really, really enjoyed it, and Unseen ends with such a cliffhanger. I was so happy that I was getting Unforgiven. Yeah. Unforgiven. That's the second one. Like within a couple days, because I had to figure out what was going on and what the main character was going to do and how she was going to react. And it's been a while since the first book really grabbed me and shook me that much and went, you have to read the book. So excellent. Many kudos out to her. I definitely recommend picking up the trilogy. I finished the first two books. I haven't bought the third yet. I really, really want to, but absolutely 100% recommended. Those reviews will be going out, I believe, later in February on my blog, so you may have to wait a little bit on those. Number 5, Late Night Phone Calls, a book that kept you up all night. A lot of books don't do this to me, and I'm using this a little loosely because I'm fairly certain the reason I stayed up all night reading this was because I had insomnia, but it was also a really interesting book, and that is Insurgent by Veronica Roth. I remember getting into this, and it was in the midst of some really unfortunate times in my life, and I got utterly sucked into the books. And I distinctly remember, lying in my bed at, midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. I think I just finished the first book in the series. Divergent. There we go. I was like, what was it called? And immediately had to read the next one and just curled up under my blanket and read pretty much the entire book at about 1 or 2 in the morning because I had to do something, and that book had really sort of grabbed me by the shirt collar and made me keep reading. So say what you want about the Divergent series. I really enjoy them. I have very mixed feelings about how the way the series ends, but that is a story for another video. But definitely one that kept me up and kept me turning the pages. Number 6, Always on My Mind, a book you could not stop thinking about. There are a couple of these, but I really have to go back to my roots and pick one of the first ones that really ever got so far into my brain I could not stop thinking about it, and that is Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Especially fitting because of the news that has come out recently about Alan Rickman. I have always been a fan of Severus Snape. Always. And this book, I remember making such waves when it first came out. Everyone was talking about it. Everyone wanted to know what was going on. I spent so much time just staring at this book, trying to figure out what was happening, desperately believing. I remember reading it and just staring at, the big spoiler scene at the end, which you should probably all know by now, but I won't say it, just in case. And just staring at it, and my mom came in and was like, Ryan, it's time for dinner. I was like, I think this just happened. And she just stared at me and goes, okay, well, it's time for dinner. And my brain was just like, no, I can't. You can't expect me to go eat spaghetti. Do you not know what just happened? It was so locked in my brain. I'm really due to reread these. I haven't reread the Harry Potter books in forever, but especially with Alan Rickman being gone, it's time to reread these and fall in love with these characters all over again and probably get this stuck back in my head. But definitely the first book that got that far into my brain. Number 7, Getting Physical, a book which you love the way it feels. Now, for someone as tactile as I am, I really expected to have a better time with this book, but I don't have a lot of textured books. I don't know why. I love texture. I won't buy clothes that I don't like the texture of. I go and walk my hand through clothing racks to figure out which ones I want, which ones I like, and I won't buy one if it doesn't speak to me in that. But I did have one book that jumped out at me, and that is The Butler's Guide to Running a Home and Other Graces by Fiona St. Aubin and Stanley Ager. It's got sort of almost a leathery feeling cover, and I think that's actually what jumped out at me first when I found it. Really just shelf surfing at Barnes and Noble one day, but I'd been working on a book, still am working on a book that takes place in a much more higher upper class household with butlers and all that jazz. And of course, I don't have any personal experience with these things, but I saw this book and was like, ooh, research plus really pretty book. It feels nice. But I love textures, and this is not only a fun book, but also it's so soft. Number 8, Meeting the Parents, a book which you would recommend to family and friends. This is actually a book that a friend recommended to me, and then I promptly told everyone that had ever grown up around that they needed to read it, and I will continue doing that. I think everyone should read it. It's a lovely little book, but especially for people who grew up in small-town Western New York like I did. Song of Summer by Laura Lee Anderson is phenomenal. It takes place back and forth between Westfield, New York, and Chautauqua Institution, both places which factored very, very much in my life growing up. And Anderson is from that area, and it shows. You ask anybody around me, ask my parents, I spent the whole book being like, this thing, I know this thing, I know where this thing is, I know what they're talking about, oh my god, they went to Midway, oh my god, Chautauqua. I couldn't do it. I was freaking out the whole time because it was literally walking down the streets of my childhood all over in a lovely little book, which also has a deaf main character, and I love learning about deaf culture. I took 3 semesters of ASL in college. I absolutely love it. And so the second, I guess I'd forgotten it because it's in the description of the book, but the second I got to the point where they're like, oh, this character is deaf, I was like, it takes place in my hometown and there's a deaf character? No, this is my favorite book ever. Done now. Go home, won the internet. But absolutely one that I would recommend to everyone, but especially if you happen to grow up, south of Buffalo, New York. You probably recognize a lot of these names, and it's an excellent book to pick up. And finally, number 9, Thinking About the Future, a book or series that you will reread many, many times in the future. And there's a whole bunch that I could have picked. I could have picked Harry Potter, I could have picked the Laurel K. Hamilton, I could have picked any number of M.C.A. Hogarths, but I'm really reaching back into one that's been around in my life for a long, long time. And the first book in the series is The Book of Night with Moon, by Diane Duane. I don't remember when I first read this. I'm guessing, actually, that the same friend that recommended Song of Summer probably also recommended Book of Night with Moon because she's the reason I love cats as much as I do. But it's cat wizards doing stuff in the big city. I still think about this book. I still think about this series. I reread them. I've been meaning to reread them again. I will probably reread these forever. I will pass them down to children that either I have or friends have. It's so much fun. It's not necessarily, it's not high literature. It's young adult fiction. It's young adult fantasy. But it's so much fun. And I used to have some of the Young Wizards series that Diane Duane also did. And those were a lot of fun. They take place in the same world, I think, because sometimes the cats will show up there. But I've always thought that, animals or even stuffed animals when I was younger, there's that Toy Story element, they've got a life outside of what we see. one of the cats I had growing up, we always said, had some sort of boutique out in the woods, because she'd leave for hours, couple days at a time, and then would show back up and be perfectly fine and, have another mark on her face or whatever. But I've always liked to believe that there's more going on underneath the surface. And that's pretty much everything Book of Night with Moon does. It shows you what's going on when you're not looking, or what you can't understand, what you can't hear. So 100% one that I will return to many, many times in the future. And number 10 is Sharing the Love. And I'm just going to say that, if you want to do this video, tag, you're it. Feel free to do your own tag. I'd love to hear your responses. If you make your own video, please give me a link down in the description or down in the comments of mine. I'd love to see what your choices for this are. I have a lot of fun with these tags and I need to do them more often, but let me know, have you read any of the ones on my book? Are you interested in any of the ones on my list? Now that I've mentioned any of them, do you want to hear more about it? Let me know what's going on. But in any case, that is the end of this video. I am still on my snow day, as you can tell from the shirt. Who knows, maybe I'll do even more videos either today or tomorrow, or who knows. For right now, I think I'm gonna go make a cup of coffee and watch a movie or something. But until next time, I will see you all on Tuesday. Bye!